I will also record the video, the webinar today. So welcome everyone. Thank you very much for participating to the today webinar in the framework of Set the Tone project. Vesa, Latifi, that is the project manager, will give you then a bit more information on why we are here and what the project is about. I want to thank our three speakers to accept our invitation. We have been working on a previous project with the three organizations that today they represent, not them in person, so new people for old project, but I'm very happy to see that after a couple of years that this project has ended. Anyway, there are still activities going on, and I think that this is what our work is about, trying always to, no matter the funding period, but to take as much as possible the good point on the project, especially like since they are so relevant. This project was on how engage enterprises fighting or in a way supporting victims of domestic violence. So a subject that many times is considered as private matter, while enterprises and private sector is anyway involved. And I think that through the presentation, you will very well understand how enterprises can have a role in gender-based violence, generally speaking. And of course, we will be focusing today more on the domestic violence impact. I will not take much time more. Thank you very much again. Thank you for the people participating, and I leave the floor to Vesa.
Thank you, Alessia, and thank you to the speakers for finding the time to be with us today. Of course, today is more about your work with the SEAS network, but I wanted also to take the opportunity to tell more about the European Alliance of Set the Tone project, which in a way is a continuation of the SEAS network, and for our participants who are already members of Alliance, to benefit from the exchange of experiences, and those who aren't yet, but perhaps looking to make a difference and starting somewhere, it can be a way for you to learn how such an alliances can be a starting point from you to initiate activities or work on the subject. So before I go ahead with giving more information, I'm Vesa Latifi, I'm project manager and equality at the Diesis network. So for Diesis, not only I do oversee and report on the implementation of a gender equality plan, I also manage projects on gender diversity and inclusion. Among our very important projects on the topic of gender equality and so social economy and gender equality is the Set the Tone project, which is about tackling the unfair treatment of women in enterprises. Over the last 2 years, Set the Tone has been carrying out its work around 3 main pillars: awareness raising campaigns about gender stereotypes, sexual harassment, including cyber harassment, and at the same time promoting a culture in which employees and employers act as key players in preventing and reporting misconduct. Then there is the training online and in person for all workers, including managers and health and safety professionals. The training is about how to counter prejudices and norms that tolerate sexual harassment. And then, of course, there is the engagement part, engagement of enterprises, private sector, and trade unions. So for the engagement part, we have been inviting enterprises, private companies, and organizations to sign the Charter of Engagement, which will then make them member of Alliance. So the European Alliance is out, as I said earlier, is out to be a follow-up of the SEAS network to fight gender-based violence, to support victims and transform them into leaders on this subject, but also to encourage this a mind shift and companies' approach towards more gender-safe work environments. So far on the European Alliance of Set the Tone, we have around 50 members. For most of the members, signing the charter was a first step in the process. And then for some others, there has been training, either online or in person. And for another part, there has been participation on the awareness campaign. Nevertheless, the goal of this alliance, or what exactly we expect from this, is that we want to encourage the exchange of experiences and competences, to establish a transnational cooperation within the private sector. We want to encourage a speak-up culture where all employees shall be made aware of how to raise a complaint and to whom. And finally, with the alliance, we want to get to that point that our actions can be acknowledged, but also be a point of reference at the European level when it comes to combating sexual harassment. And we believe that there are so many ways organizations can take action to create inclusive work cultures. However, with Set the Tone, we do encourage all of our members to follow a set of action, which to us are quite fundamental in becoming an agent of change, let's say. So this set of actions is foreseen in 3 different levels. I'm going to try share the screen with you. Sorry for the, do you see something? No. Alessia, otherwise, can you please, I don't know, something is with my computer, but the take action section, maybe you can share that with the participants. So we believe that just for you to follow me, the steps that I'm going to explain now in order. So we believe that there are so many ways organizations can take action to create inclusive work cultures. And however, with Set the Tone, as I said, we encourage our members to follow a set of actions. And this set of actions is foreseen in 3 different levels of engagement. And for our members to become fully engaged and an active key player in preventing and reporting sexual harassment cases, we require them to pass all the steps as are signing the charter, following the training, and engaging in debates when they think of solutions, barriers, or approaches to combating sexual harassment and creating safe workspaces. So basically what we are doing here today, this is all about what we're doing here today: exchanging practices, learning from each other, promoting ongoing transformative practices among each other, and we want to create this supportive community. This is mainly all about the European Alliance. So far, of course, if you do have questions for me about this, I'm happy to answer you. If not, then I would go ahead with giving the word to our speakers from la Solidarite, FAS, and CCR Hellas. So ladies, thanks again for being here today. I think we can go on, and we would be interested to hear more from you about your organizations. What do you do? Your commitment to cease gender-based violence, by what means you empower companies or enterprises to engage and shift approach to guarantee safe workplaces, free from gender bias, harassment, and violence. What strategy you followed? Was it successful? If not, why not? And maybe to tell us about the impact your practices have produced, how many workers or people you engaged or reached out to. And if you have to share with our audience some models of practice that others can learn and use it as a resource to help us foster creation of safe and healthy workplaces. I guess I can give my word to Oldine. Oldine, thank you, and please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Gonna share my screen. Okay. So do you see? Wait. Sorry. Okay. So hello everyone, and thank you to Diesis Network for inviting me. I'm Oldine Cadart, Violence Against Women Project Manager for FAS, the Fondation Agir contre l'exclusion. The Fondation Agir contre l'exclusion is a recognized public utility foundation. We have been working for almost 30 years in the fight against all forms of exclusion and discrimination, such as fuel poverty, education, employment, and violence against women. The foundation includes the head office, but also 44 independent structures called clubs that act in their regions, and sheltered foundations. And the clubs are present in several French departments. First of all, I would like to clarify that at the moment we are working mainly on the subject of domestic violence. To understand that domestic violence is a company issue, it's important to consider the figures on this slide. In particular, that the fact that 1 in 3 women experienced physical or sexual violence during her life, often by a partner or ex-partner, and 62% of these victims are employees. So we can conclude that each employer was, is, or will be in contact with a woman confronted with domestic violence. And also 42% of European women victims of domestic violence talked about the violence they suffered in their workplace, mainly with colleagues or friends, rather than managers or HR, for example. Then more than 1 European woman in 5 knows someone on their workplace who suffered from domestic violence. So based on these figures, we assume that companies are the appropriate place to tackle this issue because employees spend a third of their time at work, so away from their violent partner or ex-partner, except in the case where they are colleagues, of course. About our commitment to domestic violence, it all started with the CARV and SEAS projects, 2 European projects that allowed us to identify the needs of companies on the subject of domestic violence, the good practices already in place, and to create tools to meet those needs. From the SEAS project, the 1 in 3 Women Network was born. It's the first European network of companies committed to the fight against domestic violence. The network was co-founded by the Caring Foundation and FAS, Fondation Agir contre l'exclusion, and includes today the Caring Foundation, L'Oréal, Corian, and BNP Paribas as ambassadors, and 11 companies as network members, and more than 80 charter signatories now. At the FAS Foundation, we are also working on 2 other European projects, Active and WeGo 3. I think Betsy from PLS will say more about Active after. But both of these projects aim to improve the synergies between the various actors involved in the social professional reintegration of women victims of domestic violence. This means charities, job search structures, and companies. About the 1 in 3 Women Network, the main goals of this network are to raise awareness about domestic violence, support companies in their approach, enable them to share best practices with each other within work groups, provide tools to address their needs, and carry a common voice through the network. We also work on specific themes. For example, we produced a letter of recommendation to the Ministry of Equality and the rehousing of victims in 2021. And we are currently working on the impact of domestic violence on children who are witnesses or who are themselves victims. As I showed in the previous slide, we propose different levels of commitment depending on the wishes, the needs, and means of the companies. The first level corresponds to the signing of the commitment charter, for which we help companies to meet certain objectives. The main objective of the charter are to raise awareness on gender-based violence, create an egalitarian culture within organizations, produce and/or implement policies, tools, training, and processes, enable colleagues to openly talk and promote a supportive work environment, provide access to specialized organizations that can support employees experiencing domestic violence, and develop a network of diverse stakeholders in order to work together on this topic. For the awareness raising part, we are making available the tools developed during the CIS project, including posters, a booklet for all the employees on the impact of domestic violence in the workplace, and new learning on domestic violence. In 2019, we commissioned an European survey conducted among 40,000 employees in 6 European countries, which enabled us to highlight important figures for understanding the impact of domestic violence in the workplace. The key findings from the study show that 16% of women and 4% of men interviewed reported current or past experiences of domestic violence. 24% of victims took time off work because of the violence experienced. And 55% of employees interviewed reported that the violence had affected their work, especially in terms of lateness, absenteeism, or reduced productivity. We have also produced a series of podcasts featuring testimonials from managers who have been able to support their employees who have been victims of domestic violence, from victims themselves, or from specialized associations, for example. All this podcast are available on all the listening platforms if you want to listen them. And finally, as part of the Generation Equality Forum, we are committed to convincing 50 companies to join our network by 2026, and to supporting them in implementing an action plan to combat domestic violence within their company. Today, the network is constantly growing, and we know that the more we are, the more we will be able to act and share our best practices. And so that's it for me. So thank you for your attention. And we will send you our PowerPoint presentation if you need to contact us, or if you need more information. And I will let the next person speak.
Thank you, Oldine.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to see the continuation of the CIS network, and which I'm sure Betsy and Ariadne after can complete this. Betsy, please.
Yeah, should I start? Hello, everyone. Thank you, Diesis team, to welcome me today to present the work that PLS is carrying. I hope you all see my screen. Okay, so I'm Betsy Vivegnis. I'm working for the European Think and Do Tank pour la Solidarite. The European Think and Do Tank pour la Solidarite has been created 20 years ago as a think tank promoting solidarity and sustainability in Europe. We're working in 5 key sectors that are social economy, social affairs, CSR and diversity, sustainability, and citizen participation. Our motto is understanding, linking, and accompanying, and in order to act. Sure. We call ourselves as a Think and Do Tank because for 4 years now, we developed social professional reintegration programs, 2 mentoring programs where we're working with unemployed people and students who dropped out school, and also an accompanying program that is called 100% Jeunes, which accompany needs people. Some figures about our activities. So they're a bit old now, but we don't have the ones for 2022. So in 2021, we coordinated 6 national projects, 15 European projects. We carried out 13 training programs on European project management mainly. We organized quite a few events, and we published different studies that we called notes d'analyse on innovative subjects. What brings us together today is the CIS project that we run between 2017 and 2019. This project was, as it was previously mentioned, was a network of employers committed to tackle domestic violence. That's the continuation of the CARF project that Oldine mentioned earlier. This project was co-funded by the European programs Rights, Equality and Citizenship, and led by the 4 organizations that are present today. It's super nice to see that we all still collaborating in a few projects, even more with Oldine, because I will present to you the active project where in which we're working together. So the objective of the European project of CIS was to create a network of companies involved in this social problem, and to build a training. From that experience and from the enthusiasm created around this network in Belgium, and also with the quality of the tools that have been developed, and also the demand of few companies that wanted still to work on that topic, we decided to create the CIS violence project in Belgium. Well, not to create, but actually to continue to work on the topic. So since 2022, so since this year, with the support of Equal Brussels. So briefly, we started from what has been created, but we improving them, and we continuing to get even more companies involved in the topic of fighting domestic violence. As it was mentioned by Oldine, the figures of gender-based violence are quite shocking. And you can ask yourself, why should a company work on that topic too? But simply because the consequences of domestic violence are directly on the companies too. And we're working on the fact to make understand the companies that they have a key role to play in this topic, but they are also paying for the consequences of domestic violence, and they have an impact on the way that women work today. So as I was mentioned, or even Oldine, why should companies get involved in that topic? For economic reasons, for social commitments, also the fact that we spend a third of our life in our workplace. So the workplace should be a safe place too for women, and also because there is a legislative framework that encourage companies to work on that topic too. So how to join Diesis Belgium? It's more or less the same as in 1 in 3 women. So we ask the companies to sign a charter of commitment, then to follow a training in person or e-learning, then to create action in the company to raise awareness among employees, and also to take an active part in the network, to participate to some events or to attend or to make the network visible. If you want to join, or if you want to try the e-learning, you know the website, because it's where we host Set the Tone e-learning too, but you can just go on the website that is at the bottom of the page. So the members of the Belgian network of CIS are in front of you. We have 24 organizations that are involved in the CIS network. They have different structures. They are public. They have municipalities, also from private sectors. Different, and that's I think really nice to see that different type of organizations are involved in the topic. In 2022, so far, we managed to train 55 HR manager or resource person, and for the next years, for the next year in 2023, we're gonna plan 12 new training sessions. So welcome to join us in this membership. I wanted also to talk about the active project briefly, because it brings together different European actors too. And it's from PLA's experience in different projects, as we mentioned CARF, we mentioned CIS, but for 2 years now, we coordinating the active project that put the emphasis on how different actors can collaborate in the topic. So how social actors, but also NGOs, companies, or social service or public service can work together on tackling domestic violence. Because actually we noticed that a lot of organizations were working on that topic, but not a lot of them were working together. So the objective of this project is to create a guide that is available on the website of the project, showing the main steps for a successful return to work journey for women confronted with domestic violence, but also the creation of a learning toolkit for any person in contact with victims of domestic violence, and the publication of the white paper. We're working on it at the moment, but is focused for policymakers, corporate actors, and all organizations working on the topic. This interactive toolkit is available also on the website of the project. I mentioned it today because it's very useful for any companies who want to work on that subject. It has 5 steps: raising awareness, covering basic needs, remobilization, social professional reintegration program, follow-up, and communication. And you're welcome to just try to play with this map, as we call it. On each icons, you'll have plenty of resource available to help you to work on the topic. that we created and that are also from other other structures. And if the subject interests you and if you're based in Brussels, we're organizing the final conference of the project in 2 weeks now. All the information are on the project's website. And again, you're more welcome to come and to join us. Well, that's it for me. I went fast. I'm a fast speaker, but you have my contact here if you need more information about SEA's Belgian network or about the active project. You're more welcome to contact us. Maybe I'm going to add the website in the chat too, so that you can dig online.
That would be great. Thanks, thanks, Betsy, for your presentation and to see at the stage of where you have reached with the network. Unless there are questions from the audience, please go ahead. We are here to answer you for whatever you think you might need from us. I would leave the word to Ariadne from CCR Hellas, Greece. Ariadne, please.
Hello. Thank you very much. It's really interesting hearing about all the initiatives by the different networks and see how our common initiative has been continued. Sorry, there's some drilling in the background. Hopefully you can't hear it. It's quite loud. So I'll just share my presentation. Just a small introduction about myself. My name is Ariadne Stagkou-Bell. I am a project manager at CSRLS, which is the Hellenic Business Network for Corporate Social Responsibility. So what we aim to do is to promote and implement CSR in the strategies and operations of Greek businesses and organizations, regardless of size or sector. And we have been operating for over 20 years now, since 2000. We are a member of the European network CSR Europe, and by today we have reached a dynamic group of more than 160 Greek businesses and business organizations. Just a few words about our priorities and our core areas of action. What we aim to do is provide systematic and up-to-date information and consultation to our members, to contribute to the development and skills and know-how, and to reinforce collective action and partnership. And we believe that the SEAS project was a way to kind of integrate all three of these and try and pursue them further. So that's a good indication. I just wanted to provide some information about where we are as a country in Greece, just to show how gender equality and then domestic violence more specifically are urgent issues that we cannot ignore. I know many of you here are not from Greece, but I think it provides a context of why in Greece as well we have chosen to work on this issue. So as you can see here, Greece is last on the EU Gender Equality Index with a score that is 15.2 points below the EU score. Although this does not take into consideration violence, because there have not been enough reliable data collected for this. We can see from many other studies how this issue is also of great concern, and we see issues rising. As you can see on the left-hand side, since 2010, the number of offences that relate to domestic violence have more than tripled. And since 2020, in the last 2 years, and especially in the face of COVID, we see that, for example, in the first 6 months of 2022, we already have about the number of offences as we had in the entire year in 2020. So that's quite worrying. A lot of studies have shown this about how COVID made the situation even worse. And although I think it was mentioned already, violence is not just about physical violence, it's also about verbal violence, psychological violence, economic violence. But the worst case of physical violence, femicide, is an issue that is also increasing, but also it is hard to determine the exact figures due to 3 factors. One is the shame and stigmatization that is carried with this issue, so that leads to it being underreported. The lack of trust in social justice institutions, so in countries where there is not very little, but Small trust in like the police force and other institutions. Again, it is underreported, and also that legally in the Greek legal framework, it is not a recognized term as something separate to homicide. So that also makes this issue complicated. In the picture, you just see a recent banner that says that there have been 33 recorded femicides in the last 2 years, and that we can't accept anymore. And although action is happening on a state level and support centers are increasing, there are 44, there are 26 shelters, and there are different programs in place, such as police force training. More is needed, and companies do have a crucial role to play. Following up on what Oldine and Betsy both said, apart from the fact that there's an economic aspect, and also that, you know, victims will spend probably a third of their life at work. Another main issue, another main reason to combat it within companies is that it could be the only place that women or victims feel safe, especially when they live in small communities, in villages, not so much maybe in the cities, but especially in places where there's more of a gossipy, for example, culture. Work is the only neutral grounds to be able to discuss it. So we should work on that and try and make the most of it to help in these situations. So obviously, I think it's clear this is one of the posters we already saw about the, you know, it's not possible. We shouldn't and we cannot look away from this issue. In terms of CSR Elas's actions, just in general, gender equality, SDG 5 is one of our strategic priorities. Here are just a few areas of action about what we do. Firstly, we carry out primary research with a group of experts from the academic and business communities, for example, about inclusion in the workspace with a gender dimension. We have also published some podcasts. We have organized some events, for example, on the topic of contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals and the role of women. And thirdly, we provide systematic information to our members, for example, like on legislative developments on a European level, such as the recent announcement by an approval by the Council of the European Union about gender diversity on boards. Now, more specifically about gender-based violence, which is more of our topic today, as has already been mentioned, we were also participating in the CARVE project, which started in 2014, and it lasted 2 years. This was a project that aimed more to raise awareness, and we created some guides about like best practices, and there was more of an awareness raising campaign. And then we moved on in 2017 to a more practical application, I would say, with more like the e-learning tools and the trainings within companies, and much more that I will talk a bit more about now. So again, touching upon some things that have already been mentioned, all together with our 3 partners, we co-created the first European corporate network. We got 10 of our member companies to sign the commitment charter, and following that we implemented 5 training workshops on domestic violence and the work environment, in which we had the participation of 81 executives from 11 companies. And the important thing in this is that we had participation from different levels and departments. So it started from CEOs to HR managers to different levels that are affected, since it concerns us all. And another important aspect is that for this, internally in each country, we cooperated with different organizations, institutions that work on the ground with victims, such as in Greece, the shelter for abused women established by the municipality of Athens. And here just a few more things about what we accomplished was the creation and translation of the e-learning tool, the creation of an action kit for businesses, which included these posters, and other informative materials such as newsletters, the EU impact map, which you can see here, and finally the website, which has been mentioned, has now been transferred by the Belgian partners to a new platform, but we are currently looking into also translating it into Greek, or transferring the Greek version, so that that's made available for our members and the Greek community again. And in terms of the project sustainability, that's something we always want to look at. How after the project finished in 2019, what's been happening. So after a brief survey with our members that participated, we see that there is a way greater number of them that incorporate gender-based violence in their annual report as an actual reference, not just gender equality, which may have been the reference earlier on, but making it clear that inclusion is also about this aspect. Also, we've seen initiatives being carried out, such as in technology, creating technological tools, creation by some of our companies that can be used for helping victims to react in moments of crisis or attack. The partnership I talked about with local institutions, that we see that is continuing with certain of our members. And most importantly for us, because we're looking at what we can do moving on, is the ongoing interest in this topic and the interest in joining new initiatives, which is the last thing I want to talk to you about, which is basically what we're thinking of doing moving on. And we are grateful to Diesis and the other partners for reaching out to us with the Set the Tone project, because that is also for us bringing together the gender-based violence on a domestic level aspect together with the gender safety at work aspect, the sexual harassment at work, that they're part of the same issue. They're all very closely interconnected, and we want to be able to provide this comprehensive knowledge and a comprehensive package basically for our members, informing about both of these forms of gender-based violence. So we are renewing our commitment to these causes by signing the Set the Tone Charter of Engagement. This is something we plan to do in the very short next while, to translate the learning tool into Greek as well, and together with that to help that accompany the learning of the SEAS tool, and together with in-house company training, with workshops, with again people, employees at different levels of seniority, contribute to raising awareness. And finally, an awareness raising campaign will be kicked off again by us through several different media, just to show just how important the issue is and how big the role of companies in particular can be. So that's everything from my side. If there's any questions, please let me know.
Thanks, Ariadne.
Thank you.
I don't know if there are some questions for our audience. You have the QA question or the chat where you can pose your questions. Please go ahead. If no questions from the audience, I would just maybe open the floor.
I do have a question. I'm the audience too. While, let's see if others are writing something. I mean, it comes a bit from probably a level of knowledge of the alliances that I have. I know, and this was also quite clear in the 3 presentations. In each of the countries, you do have somehow a different kind of enterprises involved. So Oldine, in your case, those are more big, let's say, enterprises, while for Betsy, I think that you have the most heterogeneous, let's say, network, because also some public authorities, right, are members. And for Ariadne, if I understand well, you do have business, but also organizations supporting businesses, right? So there are three different ways of approaching to to this issue. Of course, not only, and alliances are and working with enterprises, of course, is I mean, can be done in different ways. My question is for all of you, you know, what is the most complex elements in discussing with the enterprises that are part of your network? If I suppose that, as for the case with Set the Tone, when an enterprise approach us and want to be part of the alliance, they at least have an interest on the topic. So let's say they are probably not aware 100%, they are not trained 100%, this comes after, but they are interested to the topic. But still there are many issues and many challenges. What has been for you in these last years, you know, the big challenge in working with them on such delicate and complex topics?
Who wants to start? Should I? I think the first challenge we face is actually to make them understand that they have a role to play. So it's more educational. The first approach is to just explain all the topic. Then I would say is actually the time. In European project, we working on 2 years, 3 years sometimes. But the time it takes for a company to sign actually a charter, it's like having a first contact with HR manager is all right, but then it's, you know, you need to climb the ladder of the powers. I don't know how to say that, but yeah. So it takes time for a company to involve in a network. So yeah, what we face actually is like that. We depend on the public funds to work on those network, and if the very short period, I don't know if I make myself understandable. So yeah, in like the previous Seas, we had 1 year to try to find, I don't know, I think it was 18 companies, but actually the time you find the contact, the time you just make them interested in the topic, the time well, it takes time. Just want to say that it takes time. And yeah, we also at the for Seas network, we don't want to, we think that any employer that actually we call it the employers network, because any people employing, any organization employing women will face with victims of domestic violence. So that's why we're not only working with the corporate and private sector, but also with public sectors and associations, because everyone is in contact, as we said before.
Yeah, I wanted to say exactly the same. The most difficult thing, I think, is to make people understand that domestic violence is a company issue. But once they understand, we start with awareness, because companies can't set up the processes and support victims if they are not first aware of the subject. So yeah, the same, the make understand that it's an issue for the companies, and time to understand, time for raising awareness. And also we have different kinds of companies. We have big companies, but we also have a little company in the 1 in 3 Women network, and for this we have to adapt the what we propose. And for that we offer 3 levels of commitment. The first being as a signatory of the charter, we accompany these companies in the implementation of an action plan, and we give them access to our awareness tools. And the action plan concerns awareness raising, the implementation of HR and victim support processes, and collaboration with stakeholders. The second level is as a member of the network. It allows companies to exchange their good practices during workshops and to have access to our training on the subject of domestic violence. And the last one, the third level, is the executive committee and allows companies to participate in the strategic steering of the network. And this level is the ambassador, so Foundation Caring and BNP Paribas, Corian, and L'Oréal. So big company, but the little company are, signatories.
And so, sorry, Oldine, the enterprises in your case, if I remember well, at least for some of the services, let's say like training, etc., they do pay, right?
Yes, exactly, yeah. But it's different. They pay something different. It depends on the level.
Yeah, and this is also, I think, something very interesting, because in the end is sad, is whatever, but I mean, it also us, when we pay the gym, then we want to go to the gym. So in this case, in this case, enterprise is willing to pay for such services, somehow put themselves also a bit more in the position, okay, now we have paid for the training, we have to deliver internally the training. So I think that, and this comes a bit also in answering to Betsy, requests, let's say, of timing and resources. I think that the next level on all this work that we are doing, it is making the enterprises more involved also economically, because they should also be aware of all the work that there is behind. European projects are great to start the process, to kick off the activities, but then we also need to get in the idea of, we are giving a service that is more and more needed. In the next 5 years, all the enterprises will need to have the gender equality plan. Now already public authorities have it, universities have it. So we really need to, I think, also change our approach, and be a bit more entrepreneurial ourselves too on this kind of subjects. And Ariadne, what about you? What's your case?
Well, firstly, yeah, I fully agree about the first aspect that Betsy and Oldine both pointed out, about convincing companies. But I think there's two other aspects as well, maybe particular to the Greek scene as well. Touching back on what I said earlier about the stigmatization, I think, especially in smaller communities and in places where there's a strong feeling of like this community, family feeling, there is a big separation between the private and public sphere. So it seems like a very intimate matter. So I think maybe a lot of companies would not want to go into that, because it's a very, especially in small places, it's what happens behind closed doors. It doesn't affect us again, so it ties in with what the other said. But also the other thing I think is what unfortunately companies seem to have to focus on everything that's coming from the European Union, all sorts of developments that are coming on a legislative level. For example, gender equality, from what I understand, the legislation that's coming in, all the new directives are about two main issues, which is gender diversity on boards and at different levels, and also the gender pay gap. So I think because there's a big anxiety in the air about being on time to adjust to these new parameters that are compulsory, it's not an option anymore. Perhaps even if companies, which I believe they do recognize, that they after seeing all the figures, even the ones that you presented today, they will understand the severity of the issue. Because it's not urgent from a business survival point of view as well, I think it might not be taken as the first priority. So I think that could be an issue.
Thank you very much.
If I can add something, what we notice too is that actually companies who face the problem internally, they reach us directly to be member. So once they experience the consequences of domestic violence internally, then they do contact us. They do want to follow the trainings and everything.
They recognize the importance of having such tool internally. Absolutely. The point is how we can make them understand it is important to have these tools before, to prevent and not to solve after the problems. I think that if there are not other questions, I don't know, Vesa, if you have any question for them, since that they have experience on the Alliance and we are still not at the beginning, but you know, working on it.
Are we losing her? Or
yeah. Sorry.
Alessia, we lost you for some
Okay.
moments there. But,
no, I was just wondering if you had any question, advice to ask them on how to keep working on the Alliance.
We are losing you again, Alessia. I don't know. There must be something probably with your network.
Don't worry.
Reaching out to enterprises. So it's either this interest that comes from companies who are already dealing with a problem and sort of see the training and the Alliance as a solution, but sometimes you could also see this hesitation of some companies, like, why, what then, how, what is it required from me? To whom, and you know, all these questions about this network and what exactly is the advantage from it. I was maybe wanted to Alessia to give the word, like the final word, since you've also been, Diesis has been also part of CIS network. I don't know if you want to say something on that as on behalf of Diesis. And I think we are right on time and we can conclude this very nice discussion we had.
Yeah, I will try. In case my connection goes down again, it'll do without me. I hope that it will take. So no, what I wanted to say as a conclusion is really that it has been the last 5 years, a very interesting journey. I mean, as Diesis, we didn't say it at the beginning, but we work mainly on supporting social enterprises, social economy enterprises. So our first objectives is really to give tools to social economy enterprises on different matters. And when we started the discussion, when we had the occasion to work on CIS, looking at big companies involved and how much they were doing on this issue, we started to reflect on, okay, but how we can transfer all these know-how, how we can transfer all these activities in small and medium enterprises that are the majority of social economy enterprises. And of course, when you speak about even micro enterprises, it's even more complicated. So the challenge is still on. We are presenting the 25th of November. That is a very important day. It's International Day on the fight against violence against women. We are presenting the results of our work. Likely enough, not like today, we had problems with the streaming. We will post, we have the recording, so we will post the recording later on today. The conference will be also online, so streamed, not hybrid, I mean semi-hybrid version. Today also conferences are very complicated. I think that it's important, and today was key for us to show show that everywhere there are enterprises working on the issue, on gender-based violence, sexual harassment, domestic violence, and so on. So what we can hope is just that for the future, we will have more and more enterprises, supporting organizations, employers, as Betsy was saying, engaged in this fight, and that we can reach not only the pay gap, not only breaking the ceiling, not only, you know, whatever things, but also to have really safe environment for everyone in the enterprises. With this, I think that we can close the webinar. Thank you very much, the three of you. Thanks, Vesa, for organizing and taking care of everything. And we will waiting for you also to the 25th. Bye.
Thank you.
all.
Thank you very
And
much.
thank you
for
to the
having
audience
us.
for staying all this time with us.
Bye.
Bye
Thank
bye.
you very much.
Bye.